All right, let's bring on my buddy Eric Mangini, 3 years, Jets head coach and Browns head coach for a couple. You can see him on First Things First. So I said yesterday, and this is what's great about the NFL, if you get the coach right or the coach and quarterback right, you can go from laughingstock to good very quickly. And I said, I want to talk about the Jets. I said, Aaron's played great, very good for 8 weeks since Devontae came back. I said I'd go probably Vrabel, Thomas Dimitroff, the GM. I'd bring Aaron back for a year or two. I think he's played well. And I would probably move Garrett Wilson in a weak draft. He could probably fetch you a second first-round pick. I don't think the Jets are that far off. I really don't. I think we always roll our eyes at the Texans or the Commanders and the Broncos and say, oh, it's not baseball or the NBA. You get the coach right and the staff right. What is my idea for the Jets? Vrabel, Dimitroff, move Garrett Wilson. He's unhappy. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think Vrabel's going to have options, and I don't necessarily think the Jets are going to be his first choice. So I'm not sure if you can get that done. I really like Aaron Glenn as a possibility for the Jets. He played there. He's been part of the turnaround in Detroit. I think he's tough, and I think that would be good for the organization. On the Aaron front, you'd like to keep Aaron because you don't want to deal with that salary cap hit and be strapped with that. But Aaron's doing everything he can to get cut. The fact that Aaron brought up the I've never been cut by a teenager, I've never been released by a teenager, that's a direct shot at the owner. That's legitimizing everything that's been said in that organization. That's making fun of how dysfunctional it is. So to me, as soon as he said that in my mind said he wants out, but he doesn't want to retire, obviously. He wants to get paid and not have to deal with any of the givebacks that come with retirement. But ideally, you would be able to keep him. You'd be able to go get a young quarterback. He could compete with that young quarterback, probably start and mentor that guy. I know that's not really his MO, but if we're talking about perfect worlds, that's what you'd like to see. I think the dysfunction that's been there for a long time is going to take a really strong GM that can create a relationship with the owner and that can kind of tamper some of his ideas. And it's also going to take a strong head coach. And those two guys need to work in lockstep because you've got no chance if the GM has a relationship with the owner but the head coach doesn't, and if they're not on the same page. And that's been what seems like a problem for quite a few of these administrations over the last 10 years.
So Chicago, listen, Caleb's thrown for 300 yards 4 times. That's more than Josh Allen and Mahomes. There's talent there. I mean, he's got something. Last night, I felt pity. I felt bad for the kid. I think it's a loud media. It's a political organization. The owners are some of the poorest and oldest. Is there a solution? Is Vrabel the fit here, or would you go Ben Johnson for the young? I'm watching Baker get reborn, and I'm watching Sam Darnold and Bryce Young, and they all found a young offensive coach. Is Ben Johnson the answer, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think this is a function of being reborn. There's a lot of really great quarterbacks that in their first year weren't very good and were part of bad teams with terrible records, as opposed to some situations where Sam Darnold, it's taken about 7 years for him to really kickstart things. But I think that the difficulty in evaluating Caleb is he's been sacked 67 times. So if he gets sacked 5 more times, the 13th all time right now at 67, 5 more, they'll be in the top 5 all time in sacks. And last night it was like a track meet to see who could get to him first. He had no chance. And then they only run the ball 12 times, even though they're averaging 4.4 yards a carry. I didn't really understand that either. I think you can go in there, you can build the offensive line. I would put a significant amount of resources into solidifying the offensive line. You've got young talent. I mean, you've got a young receiver, you've got a young quarterback. Build that first. In terms of dysfunction organizationally, we've seen it happen in Detroit. I think Vrabel would be a great fit there. I don't think it has to be an offensive head coach. I think it's got to be a head coach that has a vision and then is willing to build from the inside out and give Caleb a chance to realize some of his potential.
Yeah. So there's another story that's come out on Nick Sirianni. We've got like 6 pieces of video where he has to be managed. He's confrontational. It's just the opposite of how I view a coach. A coach should basically put fires out. I always said this about quarterbacks, Eric. That Wednesday press conference, the big one where the bank's behind you, you step up on a Wednesday, it's formidable. It matters more than your locker room talk. And I see all this stuff with Sirianni. The idea that a position coach or a quarterback would have to manage him, doesn't it bother you?
The amazing stat that I read about Nick is that he's got the highest winning percentage of any active head coach in the NFL, and he's got the fifth best winning percentage all time in the history of the NFL right now. So those numbers, if you're looking at success at the position, they're historic. He's at a historic level, and your job as a head coach is to limit distractions, to manage emotional outbursts, and he hasn't been one to do that. Now the flip side of that is he's staying true to his personality. I got criticized in New York for not being emotional enough on the sideline. He's got that covered. He's taking care of that, and I think there's some sincerity to the way that he acts. Do I agree with it all the time? No. Do I think that this is an organization that can go in and out of emotional slumps pretty quickly, as we saw last year? Yeah, but his numbers have been really, really good, Colin.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny, and I think this sometimes. The bottom line in football is winning. It's not about getting along with your players. That matters in the NBA. Like Mark Jackson got along with the Warriors, Steve Kerr got along with them better. Like getting along with players. And in baseball, it's managing, it's managing the analytics and upstairs. In the NFL, if you win, what am I going to do? The guy wins games. And I will say this, it's funny. Philadelphia is such an emotional city. There's an argument that it's like, well, they got the most emotional coach. It's the most emotional city. In a weird way,
it kind of fits.
Yeah, it's like
it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking about Mike McCarthy. It's funny when I talk to coaches, and they're like, he won with Favre, Super Bowl with Aaron. He wins with Cooper Rush. He won with Dak. I think he's great. But the perception is, and I think it's because when you coach the Packers and the Cowboys, your games are all on TV. The perception is, this guy is. And then you start looking at his career, and we know Aaron can be a little divisive now. We know that very well now. How do you view McCarthy?
Well, I think in this situation, his season is going to be saved through this last month. And he took a big step forward to staying last week with the win that he had. I think if he gets 1 or 2 wins here the next couple of weeks, I'd imagine he's staying. And look, he won 12 games 3 seasons in a row. He's won 7 games this year and he's had a backup quarterback for a significant part of the season. The Cowboys said they were going to go all in the offseason and did nothing. They lost the most starters they had ever lost in the history of the organization prior to the season and didn't really replace it with anybody. There was all kinds of turmoil with the contracts, whether it was CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott. There's that. He's been coaching as a lame duck. He's got a defensive coordinator that's coaching as a lame duck, only got a 1-year deal. And I think when you transition with Mike Zimmer, there's going to be some learning curve. His defense is very different than Dan Quinn's, but it's gotten better as the season's gone on. And you see the team is still playing hard. He works well with the owner. If you go fire a guy, you've got you get a new head coach. He's got all those learning curves. And then you've got the learning curve of being able to work with Jerry. And do you really want to go through that? Is this team so far away that next year they couldn't be, easily win the division? Yeah. I don't think they're that far away.
I want to wrap it up with this because Nick Wright, I asked Nick the other day, who you're working with today on First Things First, I said, what do you do with Sam Darnold? And Nick said, and I thought it was interesting, he said, it all depends on the playoffs. The story's not done. Let's not write the story before it's done. And I look, they brought in Daniel Jones, they drafted J.J. McCarthy. And this week the Vikings play, at home they play the Packers. And, Green Bay's on a heater. And I look at Darnold, and it's confirmation bias. I wanted him to be great. He is, so I'm feeling it. But I'm thinking to myself, if he has a clunker against the Packers, if he gets bounced in the first round of the playoffs, you probably let him go to the market. What do you think the conversations are? You've had these conversations. You've been a head coach. What are they saying about Darnold behind closed doors in that situation?
I think as well as he's played this season, I would imagine that the answer there is you franchise him. You franchise him for 1 year. You pay the $40 million. It's not a long-term commitment. You let McCarthy sit for another season and learn, similar to Jordan Love. And this way here, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. You give your young guy another year to develop. You get to see where he is. You get the benefit of another season with Sam Darnold without having to be invested in him for multiple years. And to me, that's a very reasonable answer for where they are.
Yeah. I want to throw one more thing at you. J-Mac, it torments him. He keeps saying the Chiefs are lucky. And my take is the Randy Moss Patriots did not dominate the league in the postseason. The Tyreek Hill Chiefs, they won back-to-back when he wasn't there. Is that sizzle does not win Super Bowls, and that this is not college football. The margins get tight. It's efficiency. It's third down. It's fourth down stops. It's having a great coordinator, Spags, who's on the opposite side of your head coach's excellence. And that I watch Kansas City, and I think they've pulled away from the league. I think this game against Pittsburgh, I'm like, wow, that's scary. New England, similarly, when they had their most flash, it wasn't early and late. It was in the middle, and they couldn't win a Super Bowl. So your takeaway on the idea that explosive plays, I think, to be honest with you, sometimes the more explosive your playmakers, the more they want the ball, and it disrupts continuity. I think Kansas City is scary now. I would want no part of them in the playoffs. Talk about the lack of sizzle, yet the results are better than ever.
To me, learning how to win is a skill, and learning how to win close games is a skill that takes a long time to develop. And they've been incredibly resilient. And I was down on them early because I didn't think that Patrick Mahomes was playing up to his level, but now he's playing better. So they've won in a lot of different ways. They're playing complementary football. Patrick Mahomes is starting to play, what we're used to seeing him play at. They've added good players as the season has gone on. They're getting other players back who weren't participating. That adds weapons to what they're doing. They've got the number 1 seed. They've got the bye. They've got extra time to prepare, and Andy's very good when he's got extra time to prepare. This team is a problem, and what they're doing is incredibly special. To win back-to-back championships, it's hard. And you have shortened off seasons, and everybody's coming for you. But now to be where they are in this third year, after all the success they've had, they're as dangerous as anybody is. And I think that we should respect the way they're winning and appreciate it, because it's a skill set that not very many teams have.
Eric Mangini, first things first. He doesn't come to L.A. anymore. He's got other assignments in the company, but it's...
I just need an invite. I just need a friend with a show to say, hey, why don't you come out and spend some time?
That's not a
if you know anybody, let me know.
Happy holidays, Eric Mangini. Great seeing you.
I'll talk to you soon, Colin.
All right. Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.